excited to talk about urban sketch with Marilyn Lopez. She is developing her portfolio and has really just moved into this style of art. Marilyn, how long have you been doing urban sketching?
I've been doing urban sketch for the last 3 years. 2021, the first year after COVID, that's when I really started doing urban sketch.
That's funny because I mean, most people in COVID, we did see like people really dive into their creativity and just other things to for many reasons. But that's funny that in 2021 you started to go out and sketch.
Well, I guess that we were all very excited to go out and see again the world that we haven't been seeing it, in many months, probably like a year. So I was seeking for inspiration. And because I didn't want to research anymore online to see what I was gonna, create or work on in my watercolor journey. So that's how I found this group that is called Urban Sketchers DFW here in my area. And I started going out and experimenting urban sketch.
Cool. But you've loved to paint with watercolor for a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
So for many, many years, I tried different mediums, acrylics, oils, pencils, all kinds of stuff. And it's funny that I always said that I would never try watercolors. It was very intimidating to me. And one day I just decided that I wanted to try it. I don't know why it just came to me and wanted to try something completely different, maybe to get out of my comfort zone, I will say. Also to lose a little bit. I was very, very stiff when I was applying my art to oils and acrylics and all that kind of stuff. So I really wanted to embrace more looseness. So that's why I try watercolors. And I've done so many things in watercolors, but I was always drawn into architecture, mixing the outside with some things that they're man-made. So urban sketch just gave me the opportunity to like put all those things together, including watercolors, and start creating all these pieces, related to the places that I go.
Well, when I see your work, I see a lot of vintage elements or things that you really like from the past. You think that's
Yeah.
true? How does that influence your work?
Yes. So I'm a big fan of the 50s and signs, all signs, um, all the beauty of the back in the time that everything was so detailed, the colors. So that part of me, I'm not a modern artist. I don't see how I can create something that is very simple. I want to get complicated and bold and have all the colors. And so the antiques, I'm a big fan of antiques in my personal life, in my house, and all the things that I choose. As a person, I always, I'm drawn into that particular area to preserve the antiques, to preserve the history. So that's something that I'm very passionate about.
That's interesting because I've talked to both artists that are artists that both really want to simplify their subject matter and like really get to distilling the essence of something. And then I've also talked to artists that love like historical things and older antique, like the classic color palettes and really actually love detail. And it's what I find fascinating is that I think that both artists find the same thing in completely different areas. And that would be like this peace or this feeling that they
Mhm.
want to then express in their work. Can you
Yes.
describe a couple of feelings like you hope that when people see this piece, they feel what?
Okay, so one of the things with urban sketch is, and it's super interesting, and you have to experience it to feel what I'm going to describe, is that every time that I go urban sketch and I go to a place, a new place, usually we take pictures. And it's very rare that you go back into your camera and look to those pictures and you're like, oh, I was in this place, and this is what I eat that day, or what I experienced, while I was, sitting in that bench in that park, or in the middle of the city, in this beautiful coffee shop. It's very rare that you go back to your camera to see that kind of things. And with urban sketch, I this is my goal, to make people understand and to bring them to that place again. It's interesting. I look at through my urban sketch that I've done, and I can remember the smell, how the temperature was, the people who was around me, what I was doing the urban sketch. So I think that it's also related to the history or to your memories of things that happened to your life. And the experience that I have with my customers is that they're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly the place that I was, taking a picture with my boyfriend when I got engaged. Or so there's so many stories that I hear from my customers every time that they see one of my pieces, because it transports them to exactly the place that I made that piece. And that part just gives me a lot of joy.
I had to run and get my sketchbook because what the lesson is for Watercolor Bold, which kind of coincides with these interviews,
Mhm.
is on urban sketch. I did a scene that is probably familiar to you. And
Yes.
so Marilyn and I are both Puerto Rican. And so
Yes.
this is the just next to the Park of Pigeons, which sounds ridiculous, but it's like one of the most fun things you can do. Like in
Yes.
your as I was creating this piece, I really felt like the tension of two things. Like I wanted to really bring in that feeling that you were talking about, like what it is to be in this space, not just what it looks like.
Hmm.
But I also felt rushed because, especially if you're doing it like right there in the place, you're just like going at it. So, sometimes and oftentimes I think the urban sketches I see, they look really like dynamic and splashy and fast.
Hmm.
Um, does it always have to be that way? It's like,
No.
what are your tips for those of us, especially painting live, in that place? How do you calm yourself down and really capture that space without feeling, bringing in the feeling like a feeling that's not necessarily of being rushed? Do you have any
Yeah.
tips?
So first of all, I think that simplifying your materials is very important. You need to know what is the best brush, that just one brush that will do everything for you. We'll do the lines, we'll do the marks, we'll do everything. I will never concentrate on the colors. I always concentrate on my drawing. So because I work on my with inks first, a pen. Preferably water soluble. It's important that when you establish your sketch, then you go and do your marks for your color. So you pretty much like separate one thing to the other, and then you don't feel that rush. Like, okay, I tackle first my my drawing very fast with my pen, and then I can put color, in a very calm, you,
Mm.
process. So I don't make it hurry to apply color first, because that will take me some time to think. Okay, I want it to feel this way. So more cooler, more warm colors here and there. So I just take that away, and then I work first with my pen, my ink first.
So the ink that you use is actually water resistant, right? So when you watercolor on top, it doesn't blur, or do you like to have a little bit of a blur?
It depends. I'm not a big fan of having blurs. I know that there's so many artists, and it blows my mind to see their artwork because they use the water soluble ink in a way that they can manage, the mark on the paper beautifully. And I'm not in that stage yet. I
All right.
want to see I want to see my marks like very, very noticeable. So I want my line to stay right there. I use something that it might be beneficial for people. And I have Tumble markers, and they're water soluble. So I have one that it's very light, it's like the N95, and I make my sketch with this. So when I go over with my colors, it kind of disappear. So it will go away. And then I can go over with my pen if I need to make, some changes to my sketch, then I can do it, very easily.
Okay, so it sounds like you work both ways, where you put out a sketch that's not going to move, because then you bring in the color to bring in the calm, or calmly bring in the color. And then you do have to
Yes.
use your Tombow, which might blur with your paints, but then that's because you don't want those lines to be there.
Yes. And I think I can show you because I have one here. So this one I did it with the Tombow. I didn't have time to put color on it, and barely I put some marks with my ink. But you can still see, the sketch very, very light. And then I can later can, go over with my ink and my watercolor.
Did you have to get over that intimidation of working in the moment, or was it not really a big deal to you?
I was a little bit paranoid.
You were talking about your favorite brush, or at least a brush that really does the job of both laying down the color and making marks. Do you have any tips on that?
Yes. So my favorite brush, and it's gonna be weird, it's a square. It's a square brush. So a square brush, I can do so much with this, and people cannot believe that I can do everything with just one square bruch.
Not that I'm on
And I
team
guess that
flat brush.
I learned this from you because you can do everything with a square brush.
Well, and I know that with, architecture, you're going to have a lot of straight lines unless you're doing some fancy stuff. So
Yeah.
it just helps you with that. So that makes sense.
Yes. And they can hold a lot of water. So I like to mix colors. So when I want to have, a beautiful mark that will blend with two colors, I can do that super easy with a square brush. So I can apply the water and I can put two colors and they will bleed beautiful. And that's one of my things. See how it bleeds and how they, come together, just one color when I mix two of them. I don't use many colors. I try to stay very simple with my palette. So I have very few colors. Very bold colors and then some earthy colors. Just to have that cool and warm colors together on my sketch.
Nice. So if people want to see your work and follow along and learn some more, they need to go to Instagram, and I'll put the handle down here so it's an easy link as well. But do you have any final thoughts or pointers to leave us with, Marilyn? Or have you given us already all your gold?
Yes. Okay. So I want to say that urbansketchers.org is the organization that started this movement around the world, and they're in more than 60 countries. there's so many groups that if you're visiting any place in the world, you can check and search for them. And sometimes they have outings that you can meet the people doing urban sketch. So they go and do outings. It's super interesting. We have people who goes into our outings and they share, you know, their experiences, where they live and all that kind of stuff. If you want to start doing urban sketch, just keep it simple. Yeah, you can do something, you know, around your house and start little, and then you start growing from there into something that you are more drawn into. There's no limits to do urban sketch. The only thing and the only rule is to do it from life, and that's pretty much it. So that's what I wanted to share with everybody, to do more urban sketch.
Try your hand at this style with a very lesson targeted to do so. Explore this one and so many others in Watercolor Bold. Try it out for free and learn as much as you can.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marilyn. There's so much to explore, and it's been fun watching you develop in urban sketch. So I hope everybody jumps in and starts watching too.
Thank you so much, Amaryllis.